There are very few works in human history that have a lasting impact on our society. Have you ever heard of the book called The History of Fishes from the late 1600s? Yeah, I didn't think so. The book Principia is probably something you have not heard of either, but it changed the face of scientific learning forever. So we'll come back to Principia later. We first have to start our story at a dinner party with three of the biggest nerds of the 17th century. First up is Edmund Halley. Halley's comet is named after him. Interestingly enough, he did not discover this comet. He simply noticed that comets observed at different points in history were really the same one. No one ever remembers him for inventing the weather map or the deep-sea diving bell. He was also a professor at Oxford, an accomplished cartographer, and an experienced sea captain. Nope, Halley's comet it is. Next up is Sir Christopher Wren. He was a famous astronomer and architect of his time. Last, we got Robert Hooke. He was the first person in human history to accurately describe the shapes of microscopic cells. He was also kind of a jealous, pompous jerk. In modern times, he would be classified as a troll. We'll see why shortly. So these three guys are at their dinner party, and a super nerdy conversation comes up. At this time in history, everyone knew that planets orbited around the sun in an oval shape called an ellipse, but no one knew why. Christopher Wren made a wager for the first person to come up with the answer would get 40 shillings. That comes out to be about 2 weeks' pay, a good chunk of change. So Hooke, who was known to take credit for other people's ideas, said that he already knew the answer, but he didn't reveal it. He said he didn't want to deny the others the satisfaction of discovering the answer on their own. But as far as we know, he went to the grave with his secret ellipse knowledge. Halley, on the other hand, became super obsessed. So much so, he wanted to go to the smartest man at the time to get the answer. When he made a trip to the University of Cambridge, he decided to go to the head of the math department, Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was a curious figure himself. He invented calculus because algebra wasn't powerful enough to do what he wanted, and then kept it a secret for about 30 years. He also created the foundation of modern spectroscopy by sticking a giant sewing needle into his eye socket just because he was bored. So when Halley came to visit, he asked Newton about why planets make the elliptical orbits in relation to our sun. Isaac Newton was like, "Hey, I actually worked out why that happens a while ago, but I need to dig it out of my office." Halley was overjoyed, but they ran into one problem. Newton's office was so messy that he couldn't find the piece of paper that had all his calculations. Author Bill Bryson describes this as the equivalent of someone saying he had found a cure for cancer but couldn't remember where he had put the formula. Newton agreed to redo the math calculations, but ended up doing that and much more. Newton decided to exert his focus on this endeavor and became more scarce than usual for 2 years, but in the end created the mathematical principles of natural philosophy, but we all call it Principia for short. So Principia does elegantly describe why planets move in elliptical orbits, but it also ended up describing the motion of any object bigger than an atom anywhere in the universe in any kind of condition. Principia also identified the concept of gravity and was able to reduce it down to 5 variables. It blew people's minds and made Newton an instant celebrity. So what's the big deal? Well, to put it in perspective, NASA scientists only needed the math work done in Principia to safely land astronauts on the moon and get them back. If an object is moving or sitting still, all we need is principia to describe what is going on. Even now, there is no better way to do the math. Newton figured it all out over 300 years ago, and it all started with a bet.